Good morning to my dear students. Welcome back to Atma School, Jaiswal Narayan. Today class 9th, class 8th, book Social and Political Life, lesson chapter 9, that is public facilities. And students, we were supposed to complete from page number 110. Continuation है हमारा the government's role. Given that public facilities are so important, someone must carry the responsibility of providing these to the people. गवर्नमेंट काफ़ी सारी फैसिलिटीज़ दे रहे हैं, पर एक ऐसा बंदा होना चाहिए जो उसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी उठाए. यानी गवर्नमेंट जिस भी किसके ऊपर ये फैसिलिटी दे रहे हैं, स्कीम दे रहे हैं, पैसा खर्च कर रहे हैं, एक ऐसा बंदा रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी वाला होना चाहिए कि वो चीज़, वो पैसा राइट लोगों के पास पहुँचे. ओके, सो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ प्रोवाइडिंग दिस टू द पीपल, दिस समवन इज़ द गवर्नमेंट. गवर्नमेंट भी पूरी कोशिश करती है और बीच में भी ऐसे लोग होते हैं जो गवर्नमेंट की हेल्प करती है कि उनकी जो स्कीम्स है या जो मनी है, जो फैसिलिटी है, वो राइट बंदों को पहुँचाई जाए. One of the most important functions of the government is to ensure that these public facilities are made available to everyone. Let us try and understand why the government and only the government must bear this responsibility. मतलब public facilities है, खाली देखो अभी जैसे सैनिटेशन वगैरह ओपन होता है, ओके, अब वो ओपन तो कर दिया, लेकिन उसकी सफाई करना, उसकी देख रेख करना आगे लोगों की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, राइट. सो यू कैन सी ऑन द लेफ्ट हैंड साइड, द इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन guarantees the right to education for all the children between the ages of 6 to 14 years. Equity in the schooling facilities available to all children is an important aspect of this right. However, activists and scholars working on education have documented the fact that schooling in India continues to be highly unequal. डॉक्यूमेंटेड यानी एक ये डॉक्यूमेंट्री बनाई है कि कितना डिफरेंस है स्कूलिंग में, ओके, अनइक्वल है हमेशा. यू कैन सी then below you can see the government needs to play an active role in providing adequate access to proper health facilities for the entire population. This includes the eradication of preventable disease like polio as shown in the above photographs. मतलब गवर्नमेंट कितना ज़्यादा ध्यान रख रही है इस एक्टिविटी में, ताकि टू इरेडिकेट जो पोलियो है उसे इरेडिकेट किया जाए इंडिया से. We have seen that private companies operate for profit in the market. You read about this in the chapter on the story of a shirt in class 7th book. In most of the public facilities there is no profit to be had. For example, what profit can accrue to a company for keeping the drains clean or running an anti-malaria campaign? A private company will probably not be interested in undertaking such work. But for other public facilities such as schools and hospitals, private companies may well be interested. We have many of these, particularly in large cities. Similarly, if you are living in a city, you will have seen private companies supplying water through tankers or supplying drinking water in sealed bottles. In such places, private companies provide public facilities, but at a price not only some people can afford. Hence, this facility is not available to all at an affordable rate. If we go by the rule that people will get as much as they can pay for, then many people who cannot afford to buy for such facilities will be deprived of the opportunity to live a decent life. Okay, this I will explain. That is the government role. See, that is the government role. One of the most important functions of the government is to ensure the public facilities are made available to everyone. private companies also provide public facilities, but they operate for profit. वो अपना प्रॉफिट देखते हैं इन द मार्केट. इन मोस्ट ऑफ द पब्लिक फैसिलिटीज देयर इज नो प्रॉफिट टू बी हैड. सो अ प्राइवेट कंपनी is least likely to be interested in undertaking such works, क्योंकि जिसमें प्रॉफिट नहीं होना प्राइवेट कंपनी वो काम नहीं करती है. इसलिए least interested in the responsibility to provide public facilities must therefore be that of the government. Public facilities are provided by private companies at schools and colleges, hospitals, supply drinking water in sealed bottles. Okay, profit earned by transportation, supply water through tankers. प्राइवेट कंपनीज ये काम करती है, पब्लिक फैसिलिटीज का ये काम करती है जिनमें इनको प्रॉफिट हो. See on page number 111 of your text. Clearly, this is not a desirable opinion. Public facilities relate to people's basic needs. Any modern society requires that these facilities are provided so that people's basic needs are met. The right to life that the Constitution guarantees is for all persons living in this country. The responsibility to provide public facilities therefore must be that of government. See, you can see ना कि on page number 111 हम देख सकते हो ये एक चार्ट है. Central government spends money on rupees goes to states' share of taxes and duties, interest payments, central sector scheme, centrally sponsored scheme, defense, subsidies, finance commission and other transfers, another expenditure. That is money for public facilities. Big government, first मेरे को ये पढ़ने दो, then I will explain. This brown box on page number 111. Every year you must have heard the government budget being presented in the parliament. This is an account of the expenses the government has made on its programs in the past year and how much it plans to spend in the coming year. In the budget, the government also announces the various ways in which it plans to meet these expenses. The main source of revenue for the government is the taxes collected from the people, and the government is empowered to collect these taxes and use them for such programs. For instance, to supply water, the government has to incur cost in pumping water, carrying it over long distances, laying down pipes for distribution, treating the water for impurities, and finally collecting and treating wastewater. It meets these expenses partly from the various taxes that it collects and partly by charging a price for water. This price is set so that most people can afford a certain minimum amount of water for daily use. That is, the government budget is presented in the parliament every year. The budget is an account of the expenses the government has incurred on its programs in the past year. ये बजट पार्लियामेंट गवर्नमेंट दिखाते हैं पार्लियामेंट के आगे कि उन्होंने किस किस पब्लिक फैसिलिटीज़ में कितना कितना खर्चा किया है. उनका पूरा हिसाब तो देना पड़ता है ना पार्लियामेंट में, किस में कितना उनका खर्चा हुआ है साल में, एंड हाउ, और पास्ट ईयर से कितना ज़्यादा हुआ है, किसी चीज़ में पास्ट ईयर से कम हुआ है, किसी चीज़ में पास्ट ईयर से ज़्यादा हुआ है, and how much it plans to spend in the coming year. और आने वाले साल में क्या प्लानिंग है उनका, क्या खर्चा होगा. In the budget, the government also announces the various ways in which it plans to meet these expenses. Then you can see the main source of revenue. The main source of revenue for the government is the taxes collected from the people. Government लोगों से टैक्स लेती है और फिर खर्चा कर रही है. ओके अभी देखो बड़े बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स है, ये फ्लाईओवर्स है, ये और भी बड़े बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स है, ये गवर्नमेंट के पास पैसा कैसे आएगा? फ्रॉम द पब्लिक टैक्स से फिर वो पैसा खर्चती है और उसको सारा हिसाब पार्लियामेंट को देना पड़ता है. So the main source of revenue for the government is the taxes collected from the people. The government is empowered to collect these taxes and use them for such programs. For example, to supply water, the government has to incur cost in pumping water, carrying it over long distances, laying down pipes for distribution, treating the water for impurities, and finally collecting and treating waste water. It meets these expenses partly from the various taxes that it collects and partly by charging a price of water. Okay, अभी जो बड़ी बड़ी सोसाइटीज़ में कॉलोनीज में टैंकर्स आते हैं तो उनका पेमेंट उनको करना पड़ता है वाटर टैंकर का. It meets these expenses partly from the various taxes that it collects and partly by charging a price of water. This price is set in a way that most people can afford a certain minimum amount of water for daily use. Okay. That is where does the government get money for public facilities? Through taxes वगैरह. देखो अभी वहाँ पे राइट हैंड साइड में एक स्टोरी दी है about Amu and Kumar. There is a conversation as Amu and Kumar ride around Chennai. Amu, did you notice that the roads in Std8th was so bumpy and without street lights? I wonder what the place is like at night. Kumar, what better can you expect in a slum? Slum यानी एकदम वो झोपड़पट्टी एरिया कहते हैं ना, that. Amu, why should slums be like that? Shouldn't they have the public facilities? Kumar, I think public facilities are for those who live in proper houses and colonies. They are the people who pay taxes. Amu, why do you say that? Slum dwellers are also citizens and they have rights too. Kumar, array, the government will go bankrupt this way. Amu, well, it has to find a way. Can you imagine what it would be like to live in a slum without proper roads, water, electricity? Kumar, air. Our constitution recognizes many of the public facilities as being a right of life. The government must see that these rights are protected so that everyone can lead a decent life. Understood? Then you can see on page number 112 there are few questions on the top. Then एक गोल वो बना हुआ है wheel. Tax revenue and settled government rupees comes from. Okay, you can see buses are the most important forms of public transport over the short distance. It is the main link to the workplace for majority of the working people. ये क्या डायरेक्ट आपको जगह पे उतारती है. ट्रेन की सर्विस तो स्टेशन तक उतारती है. देन आफ्टर दैट यू हैव टू गो बाय ऑटो बस, तो डबल पैसा हो जाता है. तो बस क्या डायरेक्टली आपको वो जगह में पहुंचाती है और बहुत एक्सपेंसिव भी नहीं है. So it is a main link to the workplace for majority of the working people. With the rapid urbanization, the public bus system even in the major cities has not been able to keep up with the demand. जिस हिसाब से पॉपुलेशन बढ़ती जा रही है, अब बस एक एक सोसाइटी में तो नहीं जाएगी. ओके, मेन वो जगह होती है वहाँ पे रोक देती है. वहाँ से बंदे को यहाँ ऑटो रिक्शा में जाना है या पैदल जाना है, दैट डिपेंड्स अपॉन द पर्सन. As an alternative, the government has planned ambitious metro rail projects for Delhi and other metropolitan cities. Rupees 11,000 crore was spent from the government budget for the construction of the first segment of the metro rail in Delhi, using the latest technology. People have pointed out that this massive expenditure could have been avoided if only a fraction of this amount was spent on upgrading the public bus system. Would you agree? What do you think could be the solution for other regions of India? ओके, ट्रेन भी है, लेकिन ट्रेन का क्या होता है कि वो बंदे को जहाँ जाना है वहाँ नहीं, जो ठीक है प्लेस है, बाकी उसके बाद ऑटो रिक्शा या कुछ भी उनको लेना पड़ता है. सो बस क्या डायरेक्टली आपको वो सोसाइटी के बाहर भी उतार सकती है, वो कंपनी के बाहर भी उतार सकती है, स्कूल कॉलेजेस के बाहर भी उतार सकती है. लेकिन ट्रेन का तो एक स्पेसिफिक जगह होती है, प्लेटफॉर्म होता है, वहीं वो उतारेगी. Next is water supply to Chennai. Is it available to all? While there is no doubt that public facilities should be made available to all, in reality we see that there is a great shortage of such facilities. In the rest of this chapter, we will read about the provision of water, which, as we have seen, is a public facility of great importance. Water supply in Chennai, as we saw at the beginning of the chapter, is marked by shortages. Kami. Municipal supply meets only about half the needs of the people of the city on an average area. There are areas which get water more regularly than others. Those areas that are close to the storage points get more water, whereas colonies further away receive less water. The burden of shortfalls in water supply falls mostly on the poor. The middle class, when faced with water shortages, are able to cope through a variety of private means such as digging borewells, buying water from tankers and using bottled water for drinking. Apart from the availability of water, access to safe drinking water is also available to some, and this depends on what one can afford. Once again, the wealthy have more choices thanks to the booming market in bottled water and water purifiers. People who can afford it have safe drinking water, whereas the poor are again left out. In reality, therefore, it seems that it is only people with money who have the right to water. A far cry from the goal of universal access to sufficient and safe water. Okay, that is water supply to Chennai. While there is no doubt that public facilities should be made available to all, in reality we see that there is great shortage of such facilities. Water supply in Chennai is marked by shortages. Some examples. Municipal supply meets only about half the needs of the people of the city. म्यूनसिपैलिटी का पानी सबको नहीं मिलता है. ओके, कुछ किसी को म्यूनसिपैलिटी का मिलता है, किसी को बोरिंग का मिलता है, किसी को बिल्कुल नहीं मिलता है, तो आसपास नल लगे होते हैं, वहाँ जाके वो भर के आते हैं. देयर आर एरियाज विच गेट वाटर more regularly than others. Areas closer to the shortage points get more water, whereas colonies further away receive less water. The burden of shortfalls in water supply almost every falls on the poor. The middle class, when faced with water shortages, can cope through a variety of private means such as digging borewells. ओके, कई जगह में है जहाँ बोरवेल का पानी आता है ज़मीन के नीचे से, बहुत सारी सोसाइटीज़ में है. बाइंग वाटर फ्रॉम टैंकर्स एंड यूजिंग बॉटल्ड वाटर फॉर ड्रिंकिंग. सील्ड. फॉर सेफ ड्रिंकिंग वाटर द वेल्दी हैव मोर चॉइसेस. पैसा फेंको और चीज़ ले लो. इन रियलिटी देयरफॉर इट इज़ ओनली पीपल विथ मनी हु हैव द राइट टू वाटर. दिस गोज कम्प्लीटली अगेंस्ट द गोल ऑफ यूनिवर्सल एक्सेस टू सफिशिएंट एंड सेफ वाटर. मतलब यहाँ क्या है कि लोगों के पास पैसा है तो सब कुछ है, नहीं है तो यू कांट इवन गेट द क्लीन एंड द प्योर वाटर. see on the right hand side of page 113, there is a woman in rural areas. Water is needed both for human use and by the cattle. The sources of water are wells, hand pumps, ponds, and sometimes overhead tanks. Much of these are privately owned. Compared to the urban areas, there is an even greater shortage of public water supply in rural areas. Okay students, प्लीज़ रीड दिस लेसन. जहाँ तक मैं आपको पढ़ा रही हूँ वहाँ तक ये लेसन रीड करो. बहुत प्रिटी गुड और एकदम सिंपल लेसन है. ओके, एंड मेक अ नोट्स ऑफ दिस इन योर बुक. इसके नोट्स बना हुआ. ओके, रीड द लेसन अगेन एंड अगेन. बहुत सिंपल हो जाएगा आपके लिए. जैसे देखो, द टॉपिक है वाटर सप्लाई टू चेन्नई, तो उसके बारे में आप कुछ फ्यू पॉइंट्स यू राइट इन योर CWSST बुक, द गवर्नमेंट्स रोल. अगेन फ्यू पॉइंट्स आप कैप्चर कर सकते हो, कुछ एग्जांपल्स दे सकते हो फ्रॉम द पिक्चर्स गिवन इन योर बुक. देयर आर मेनी पिक्चर्स गिवन इन द बुक, यू कैन टेक एग्जांपल फ्रॉम इट. Okay, so in my next class I will continue from page number 113, that is taking water from farmers. Okay, so please do read the lesson, and in my next class I will continue from page 113 of your text. So with this I wrap up my class here. Thank you to all.